Apostolic Exhortation. Pope Francis releases his much-anticipated document from the Vatican Synod for the Amazon. We have reaction and analysis from Rome. A clear victory. The results are in from New Hampshire's Democratic primary. We'll tell you who had a big night and who did not. Fight for the unborn. Reaction as Democrats on Capitol Hill discuss ways to increase access to abortion. And fighting for the faithful. A Catholic university hosts a conference on defending religious freedom in the workplace. On EWTN News Nightly for Wednesday, February 12th, 2020. Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Tracy Sable. The Vatican has released the post-synodal apostolic exhortation, Carida Amazonia, or Beloved Amazonia. It is Pope Francis's response to the nearly month-long meeting that happened at the Vatican last October. Despite widespread speculation following the synod, the Pope does not call for married priests, but seeks to expand horizons beyond conflicts. The Vatican presented the Holy Father's exhortation earlier today at a press briefing. The document traces new paths of evangelization and care for the environment and the poor. The Holy Father urges bishops to pray for more priestly vocations and to send missionaries to regions where faithful Catholics in remote areas can go months, even years, without Mass. Cardinal Michael Cierney, Undersecretary of the Vatican's Migrants and Refugees Section and Special Secretary of the Synod for the Amazon, joins us now from Rome. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure, Tracy.
Well, Pope Francis describes his exhortation as his personal reflection on the Synod discussions. What does it tell us, and what's the ultimate message?
It's his reflection, but it's called Carida Amazonia. It's a love letter. It's a love letter based on what he has experienced in all this synodal process. And with that love, he shares 4 dreams with us: a social dream for justice and equality, an ecological dream for care for the common home, a cultural dream of a truly enculturated gospel, an enculturated church, and finally a pastoral dream of how the church will renew itself to accompany the people of the Amazon. So it's a beautiful letter, a loving letter, and a letter that involves us in his vision and in his passion for the Amazon.
I'm curious, why do you think Pope Francis didn't mention the possibility of married priests in the document?
The papal exhortation officially presents the final document of the Synod, which includes that proposal as well. So what he has done is he has put the entire final document in our hands. He has asked everyone to read it entirely, so including all the proposals, and then to see, depending on where one is in the church and what the needs are, how we're going to pick up on those proposals and carry them out.
What does the Pope concretely propose in helping to evangelize the Amazon region?
He's to help evangelize the Amazon region. He's calling for the discovery of every Christian, no matter where they are or what situation they're in, to discover that they also have a missionary vocation, a vocation to share the good news of Jesus Christ with everyone. And this involvement of everyone, I think, is one of the things that runs through the whole exhortation, that you can't love and dream without wanting to be involved. And I think his dream and his love is truly infectious, so that when one reads it, one feels like getting involved oneself. And this, I think, will have a great effect in the Amazon and elsewhere in the church as well.
Can we talk about what the Pope says about the importance of lay people, especially women, in collaborating with priests when it comes to missionary work?
One of the most beautiful passages in the exhortation, which is based on all sorts of testimony that came through the entire process, listening to people in the Amazon, is the testimony that he gives on the role of women up till now in maintaining and carrying forward the church. And the way he says that, I think, is itself inspiring. And I ask myself whether women in other parts of the world won't read that and say, oh, I would love that to be true of me too. And then, based on that experience, he then goes on to invite us to be creative and courageous in developing new ministries and in having those ministries included and recognized and ratified within the church, so that people who are doing these ministries will feel the full support of the community. And one of the most beautiful examples, I think, is the new ministry proposed in the final document, the ministry of caring for our common home. To me, it seems that if every parish in the church had a ministry of care for the common home, that would be a wonderful contribution to the whole world and to our future as a human race.
Well, Cardinal, thank you so much for your time and for your insight. We appreciate it.
It's a great pleasure. God bless you.
Edward Penton, Rome correspondent for EWTN's National Catholic Register, joins us now to offer some analysis and reaction on the Pope's document. Edward, we just heard from Cardinal Michael Czerny. What do you think are the overarching themes of the document?
Well, they really revolve, Tracy, around the four themes, the four great dreams that the Pope talks about. He calls them an ecological dream, a social dream, and a cultural dream, and an ecclesial dream. And these are really the main issues, the main focus of the document. It really especially focuses on protecting the culture and the environment in the Amazon, and also really trying to help the local people there stop being exploited, and a lot of injustice being perpetrated there, and really to help them get over that, and also the crime that's prevalent there too.
And it seemed like a lot of pressure was being put on the Pope to allow married priests in the Amazon due to a shortage of priests there. What's the reaction been?
Yes, well, it wasn't mentioned at all explicitly in the document, and it seems very much the Pope has lain off that subject. He doesn't really endorse it. It doesn't endorse it at all. And so that's been a disappointment for many of those who were hoping that he would make such a change, that he would allow the ordination of married men in order to cater for the shortage of priests in the Amazon region and the remote regions of the Amazon. But that didn't happen. And we heard from Bishop Franz Joseph Overbeck, who's head of Adveniat, which is a humanitarian organization of the German bishops, which helped fund a lot of the preparations for the synod, and they were very much hoping for such a change. He said he was rather disappointed by it. He said he wished change would have happened, but at the same time he welcomes the fact that the Pope talked about the urgency of the emergency pastoral situation there.
Do you think the possibility remains open?
Well, I think very much so, because although there was talk about the document, the final document where this proposal was made, not being magisterial, the press conference today, Cardinal Czerny did say, he told journalists that the issue does remain open, and I think the general consensus here is that although it wasn't passed by the Pope at this time, they will return to the subject and try to get it through by other means.
And ordaining women as deacons was another topic that was brought up during the synod. What did Pope Francis say about that?
Yes, well, he was more strong about that, in fact, and ruled out bringing holy orders and ordaining women to the diaconate, to a female diaconate. He said that it clericalizes women and diminishes their indispensable contribution to the church. And so he was really quite strong about ruling that out. But Cardinal Czerny again left that open. He said, well, it's still subject to study.
And thank you so much for your time. Edward Penton, Rome correspondent for EWTN's National Catholic Register. Thanks again.
Thank you, Tracy.
Senator Bernie Sanders claims victory in the New Hampshire primary, squeaking out a win against Pete Buttigieg. But President Donald Trump says that he is the real winner, earning more votes than any previous incumbent. White House correspondent Mark Irons has reaction to the race results. Mark.
Tracy, the New Hampshire primary definitely shook up the race for the White House, with 3 Democrats dropping out and the presumed front-runner falling further behind. And President Trump is sizing up the candidates, including Tuesday's victor. In a repeat of 2016, Bernie Sanders wins in New Hampshire.
This victory here is the beginning of the end for Donald Trump.
The Democratic nomination to take on President Trump is still up for grabs. Following his success in Iowa and a close second-place finish in New Hampshire, Pete Buttigieg actually leads the overall race for Democratic delegates.
Our campaign has the vision to call more and more people into the majority that will one day defeat Donald Trump.
But President Trump is feeling strong. Voters turned out to seal his easy victory in the state's Republican primary. He tweets, "Wouldn't a big story be that I got more New Hampshire primary votes than any incumbent president in either party in the history of that great state? Not an insignificant fact." The president is also taking aim at the Democratic candidates, including a newcomer. The former mayor of New York City, Mike Bloomberg, will soon show up on the ballots.
Frankly, I'd rather run against Bloomberg than Bernie Sanders, because Sanders has real followers, whether you like him or not, whether you agree with him or not.
And President Trump is questioning Joe Biden's campaign.
It's stumbling, it's mumbling, not pretty. But we'll see how he does. You never know.
After leading national polls for months, Biden finished 5th in New Hampshire after a 4th-place finish in Iowa. But he's looking ahead.
We just heard from the first 2 of 50 states. 2 of them. Not all the nation, not half the nation, not a quarter of the nation, not 10%. 2. Now where I come from, that's the opening bell.
Joe Biden is hoping for major support from Black and Latino voters in upcoming primary contest, and a few goodbyes in the Democratic run for the White House. Andrew Yang, Michael Bennet, and Deval Patrick have all dropped out of the race. Tracy.
All right, White House correspondent Mark Irons. Thanks, Mark. All right, joining us now via Skype to discuss the results from New Hampshire is Kristen Day, Executive Director of Democrats for Life. Kristen, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you for having me on today.
Absolutely. Well, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders came out on top last night. How was he able to pull out a win, and do you think he's now considered the front runner?
You know, I think it's still too early to tell. There are so many factors up in the air and things changing. I mean, we just saw Amy Klobuchar go from 5th to 3rd. So I think there's really, South Carolina is going to be a big indicator of where the campaigns are going, I think.
Well, over the weekend, Sanders said that being in favor of abortion is an absolute essential part of being a Democrat. What are your thoughts on that comment?
I think it's a little ironic coming from someone who isn't even a Democrat. He's an independent. And so the fact that he's running in the Democratic primary is fine, but it doesn't give him the right to say who does or doesn't belong. You know, I've been a Democrat longer than he has, so I think I have a better say of who and who shouldn't belong, and I think pro-life Democrats belong in the party.
Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar seemed to reach out a little to pro-lifers earlier this week, saying that Democrats need to have a big tent. How do her comments play with voters?
It's good. It's good that somebody is reaching out and saying, you know, reaching a hand out and saying, hey, you know, I want the vote of pro-life Democrats. We are a big tent. But again, you know, we're cautiously optimistic of what she really means, because steps have to be taken. You can't just say we think that pro-life Democrats belong in the party and then continue to apply a litmus test toward anybody who wants to run as a pro-life Democrat. Well, so there has to be more of a conversation.
Yeah, I apologize for that. On the Republican side, President Trump amassed more votes in the New Hampshire primary than any incumbent president in history. Do you think that Democrats should be worried about this?
Yeah, I think Democrats should be really worried about it, especially when, you know, the top 2 vote getters in the last 2 primaries have been closing down the big tent and pushing voters out of the party. So yes, there should be a lot of concern about that. Instead, you know, they talk about trying to get more voters to come in and building this coalition out of one side of their mouth. On the other side of their mouth, they're saying that pro-life Democrats shouldn't be in the party and we don't want your vote. So I think there's very big concern for Democrats.
Well, Kristen, New Hampshire's in the rearview mirror right now, and now we're looking forward to Nevada. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So we have been going to all the Democratic campaign debates, and we've been carrying our pro-life for the whole life banner and talking to people on the ground. And one thing, and we'll be in Nevada as well, but one thing we noticed is that a majority of Democratic voters do not support the extreme position that some of the frontrunners hold. You know, a majority of Democrats want more moderate language on abortion. A majority of Democrats don't support abortion after 12 weeks. So what we're saying, and when we're talking to people on the ground, we're educating people on where the party has taken this extreme position, and we need people to moderate. And so we're looking forward to being in Nevada and really trying to educate voters on the ground of where the party stands and continuing to push this issue. And we'll be in South Carolina too. And again, I said South Carolina is going to be the real telltale signs of where the party's going, where the candidates are going, and where we're going to be as a party.
Well, Kristen, thanks so much for your insight. We appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much.
That's Kristen Day, Executive Director for Democrats for Life. Thanks again. Well, this morning, the Democratic-led House Committee on Energy and Commerce held a hearing on abortion. Pro-life advocates say the legislation at issue here would mandate abortion on demand. Catholic News Agency's Matt Hadro reports now from Capitol Hill.
Good evening, Tracy. The Susan B. Anthony list said that this bill would supersede all current federal and state laws protecting unborn human life. And today, one pro-life advocate shared her personal story.
I'm here as a woman who had an abortion and has spent the last 22 years helping others who regret their abortion.
Georgette Forney is a co-founder of the pro-life group Silent No More. She warns the committee what a culture that permits legal abortion should expect.
Women reach out to us for help because they're dealing with nightmares, depression, suicidal feelings and attempts, eating disorders, addiction, sexual dysfunction, and most common, a low sense of self-esteem. If abortion is no big deal, why are all these people going through healing programs?
Today's hearing is a push by Democrats to make a case for H.R. 2975, the Women's Health Protection Act of 2019. This bill aims to protect abortion access nationwide by law so that even if Roe v. Wade is overturned one day, abortion will still be legal. Democrat Tony Cardenas of California supports the bill.
So it's really important that people understand that we can codify it in law. Hopefully we'll be able to do that so we don't have to worry about the precarious nature of wondering how many members of the United States Supreme Court are going to fall on this side or the other side of the issue.
Republicans say they want this hearing to bring awareness to pro-life advocates of the work they still need to do.
This country has been going through this debate since Roe versus Wade. I think and it would be my prayer that the courts would eventually respect the premise that that's life, individual, distinct life that should be protected.
The bill was first introduced last May. It has now more than 200 co-sponsors, but pro-life advocates say they will continue to fight it, and realistically, the bill stands little chance of becoming law with Republicans controlling the majority of the Senate. At the Capitol, Matt Hadro, EWTN News Nightly.
Russell Vaughn, acting director of the Office of Management and Budget, defended the president's 2021 budget proposal today on Capitol Hill.
There's nothing in this budget that proposes a replacement for the Affordable Care Act that the Trump Department of Justice is trying to declare unconstitutional. Is that correct?
That's not true. There is a health care allowance that is meant to look forward to a repeal and replace piece of legislation that fully protects individuals with pre-existing conditions.
The president's proposed fiscal year 2021 cuts to both Medicaid and Obamacare health insurance policy subsidies total almost $1 trillion over 10 years. The federal prosecutors in the Roger Stone case abruptly quit the case after the Justice Department overruled their recommendation for up to 9 years in prison. President Trump reacted at the White House today.
Roger Stone for doing, nobody even knows what he did. In fact, they said he intimidated somebody. That person said he had no idea he was going to jail for that. That person didn't want to press charges. They put him in for 9 years. It's a disgrace. And frankly, they ought to apologize to a lot of the people whose lives they've ruined.
The four federal prosecutors in the Roger Stone case wanted President Trump's longtime ally to get between 7 and 9 years in prison for lying to Congress and witness tampering. Coming up, a fall in new cases of the coronavirus is raising hope in China. And Pope Francis tells the faithful how something good can come from our sadness. China is reporting the lowest number of new coronavirus cases, raising hopes that the deadly outbreak could be peaking. Meanwhile, the biggest outbreak outside of China is on a cruise ship quarantined in Japan. 39 new cases are confirmed on the Diamond Princess, along with a Japanese health worker, totaling 175 people now sickened by the coronavirus on the cruise ship. What's more, people are concerned that the Japanese health worker who caught that virus was wearing protective clothing. Some progress on ending the longest war in U.S. history. The Taliban is asking for a temporary truce. Both sides have been negotiating a permanent ceasefire for weeks. But now the Taliban is offering a temporary reduction of violence for a week. If it doesn't get a response from the U.S., the Taliban is promising to walk away from the negotiating table. In Syria, a rare clash between U.S. troops and Syrian soldiers. An American patrol was fired on, and they fired back, killing one Syrian and wounding another. The U.S. patrol came across a Syrian army checkpoint in northern Syria early this morning. That's when a group of Syrian government supporters threw rocks at them. They tried to de-escalate the situation, but came under small arms fire. The American convoy shot back, killing one civilian and wounding another. Hundreds of U.S. troops are in northern Syria working with Kurdish allies in the fight against ISIS, but they are now in danger of getting drawn into the fighting between Syrian government forces and Syrian rebels. Pope Francis prays for families caught in the war-torn Syria.
La Siria sanguina da anni.
At his weekly talk with pilgrims at the Vatican, the Holy Father also says sorrow is rooted in love for God, and he defines two types of sadness: losing a loved one, which can lead us to better appreciate those around us, and when we cry over our own sins, which can bring us closer to Christ, the true Comforter. Up next, we hear about an effort to defend religious freedom in the workplace. A high-powered conference is taking place this week in Washington, D.C. It is aimed at making sure companies are supportive and inclusive towards religious beliefs in the workplace. The Catholic University of America's Bush School of Business will host the two-day event starting tomorrow. It is called Diversity's Next Big Thing. It brings together business leaders from across the United States to share their experiences and best practices to support faith-based initiatives at the office. Joining us now to discuss the initiative is Brian Grimm, founder and president of the Religious Freedom and Business Foundation. Brian, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Tracy. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. Well, how prevalent are faith in the workplace programs, and can you name some companies that have implemented them?
Well, they're growing. Like you said, it's the next big thing. So nearly 20% of companies have some faith-based initiative in the company. Companies like Texas Instruments and American Airlines have been doing this for 20 years. Other companies like Salesforce have been doing it for 3 years, and it's now their fastest growing employee initiative in the company. And others, big name Walmart, has just gotten into this space last year.
Wow. Can you give us an idea of what a typical faith in the workplace program is like?
Yeah, they come in different shapes and sizes. They fit to the culture of the company. They usually have groups for employees to come together so that they can express themselves, celebrate who they are, and share who they are with people of other backgrounds. So those are faith groups. Sometimes it's chaplains. Tyson Foods has chaplains in their companies across the United States.
I know that you said corporate America is at a tipping point towards giving religion similar attention that it gives other diversity categories. Can you tell us why you said that?
Well, I alluded to it. When you get the largest employer in the United States saying this is important to do, then others will follow. Other companies like Google has already gotten into this, realizing that if you're open and let people bring their whole self to work, faith and all, that keeps employees happier. They're happier to work harder. They bring what really motivates them inside right into their work.
So how did the movement to strengthen religious freedom in the workplace, how did that all get started?
Well, it bubbled up from the bottom. It's just people wanting to be themselves at work, and faith for many people is a big part of their life. And they just ask their bosses, hey, I'd like to have a prayer group, or I'd like to meet with others. Or some people, they just want to know, now we have Muslims in the workplace. Could we learn about that? And so different ways people wanted to know about religion, express their faith, and appreciate others. That's where it came from the bottom up.
Well, quickly, we don't have much time left, but can you talk a little bit more about the conference?
Oh, the conference. This is the first time ever that these employee resource groups from within Fortune 500 companies have come together to share their experiences. So we have people from American Express, American Airlines, Tyson Foods, Intel, PayPal, Salesforce, just to name a few, coming to share what's going on in their companies, and they're wanting to, you can say, share this news with America.
Wonderful. Brian, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Great to be here.
Thank you. Brian Grimm, founder and president of the Religious Freedom and Business Foundation. Thank you again. And we thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. We're back tomorrow with more news from a Catholic perspective. Good night and God bless.